Good morning, everyone. Welcome to LARA Live. We are here with the State Fire Marshal. Want to introduce yourself?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Kevin Sehlmeyer. I've been the State Fire Marshal for just over a year, and it's my second opportunity to talk about. We're going to talk about fireworks and some summer safety, and making sure everybody has an enjoyable holiday.
Yep, sounds good. My name is David Harns. I'm a Public Information Officer here at LARA, and it's just going to be an informal conversation. We're just going to kind of go through some of the things that folks should know to, keep their summer safe. Make sure that they're enjoying everything that the state has to offer, but doing so in a safe way. So let's get started. Right away with fireworks coming up here. It's kind of a busy season for that. What you oversee the fireworks program because you oversee the Bureau of Fire Services. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in 2011, Governor Schneider signed the Public Act 256, and that allows for the sale of consumer fireworks, but also, maybe more importantly, the Bureau of Fire Services that I oversee. We take care of that program, everything from the certificates, we'll talk about that a little bit more, all the way to the enforcement. We have fire inspectors that are out taking care of that, and then also working with the retailers to make sure that folks get what they want to celebrate their holidays, but also we do it in a safe way.
Okay, so what's the difference then between consumer fireworks and low impact fireworks?
I think probably the biggest thing is if you growing up and stuff, the low impact was the stuff that was traditionally in Michigan. It's the sparklers, it's the snakes, it's the stuff that doesn't fly. Okay. One thing that happened with Public Act 256 is that the bigger stuff, and then also realizing that's 1.4, that's explosive class. When we get into the 1.3, that's the bigger stuff that you're going to see as you go out to your community shows and those type of things. So 1.4, smaller, it's the amount of explosive in there compared to the stuff that you're going to see at the big shows.
So what does a fireworks retailer need to do in order to legally sell, consumer fireworks in Michigan?
So annually, starting in April, they have to make application to sell fireworks out of a store or brick and mortar. It's $1,000 for the certificate, and the tents that you see around the state, it's $600 to have a certificate in order to have a tent.
So each of those tents, if you see a tent on the side of the road or in a parking lot at a Meijer or something like that, those are all licensed by the state of Michigan?
Yes, they are. Well, and that's one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later.
Okay.
Is sometimes we want to make sure that we also understand that there are folks that are out there selling fireworks that aren't following the program set forth by the Bureau of Fire Services. So if people aren't sure, we'd like them to let us know also. Okay,
sounds good. And so they have to apply at the state level for that. And how does that process work? How does that look on the inspection side? And what do you have to do?
So
to make sure that
by April 1st that they actually apply, and then through a process we issue what we call a certificate. Once the certificate is issued, we send out a fire inspector. Everybody has to open up with an inspection. Okay. And then in the process, we're looking at some things at each one of the tents or the brick and mortar sites. We say brick and mortar, the storefronts. Yeah. And then in the process, we have inspectors who are out making sure that people are doing things the right way, being safe. That's the main thing that we want, even from the selling side of it.
Sure, because there's a lot of explosives in the tent there. You got to make sure that things are handled correctly. Yep. So go ahead.
And so there's signage and different things, and then even how close you can park your car to a tent and different things. And we're just trying to, like I said, when you have explosives in that area, we want to make sure that that people are being safe and that people can get what they need so they can enjoy the 4th of July.
For the tents that pop up every year around this time, is there a date that they can't open before, or is there a date that they must close by, or is that just determined based on supply and demand and what they choose to do?
It's pretty much based on supply and demand. In fact, the certificate that they're getting right now is actually good through early next year. Okay. So one of the things that we want people to, and what you'll see is the tents pretty much pop up around the summer holidays, but the brick and mortars open and close. And some of the stuff that regulates when fireworks can be set off are ordinances that can be adopted by any local form of government, actually.
Okay, all right. Well, and we'll get to that shortly then. Yep. What's the penalty for somebody selling fireworks illegally in Michigan, whether it be at a pop-up location like this, or if people are selling them kind of out of their house, or those types of things? What does that look like?
Well, first off, I want to share with everybody you can't sell them out of a house. Okay. So if somebody's trying to sell you fireworks out of a house, and we understand that a lot of the, if you want to say the folks that have certificates who are the legit retailers, they'll actually use Facebook. It is a great medium. We're using it here this morning to get the word out. But we want people to understand that that certificate is to a set address, and it can't be a home, it can't be a pole barn, those type of things. We're seeing a lot of stuff on Craigslist. And one of the things that we're doing, we're enforcing that. We believe that, we look at license and regulatory affairs, is that the folks who are doing it legitimately, who are following the rules, should benefit from that. And the folks that aren't, we're going to seek those folks out, and we're going to, and the fine, you ask about that, for not having a certificate and not having insurance, which are 2 requirements to sell fireworks, it's a $5,000 fine.
Okay. And so is there a place where you can go and check and see if the place that you're about to go to is, licensed by the state of Michigan? Is there a website or anything like that?
Yeah, you can through the Bureau of Fire Service. I think one thing when you're into these tents, they'll have a certificate. That's one of the things they have to have. You'll see a fire extinguishers. You'll see the signage. I mean, you can tell pretty quickly whether or not it's a legit, and that it's being they're following the law.
And you can ask the owner or an employee to look at the certificate or the license or what have you, and they should have it on premises.
They will be able to produce that. Yes.
Okay. Let's see here. Is there let's see, what's the phone number that the public can call? We'll put it in the comments as well, but do you know off the top of the hand what the public can call?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, call the Bureau of Fire Services. It's 517-241-8847.
Okay.
And also we have a fireworks hotline.
Okay.
That could be called 24 hours a day, and that's 517-388-6715. Again, that's 517-388-6715. And that's when we're looking at the retail side of the fireworks. If you have a problem with your neighbor, or you have a problem with something in your area, the local police department would be the people to contact. When I say that, if it's actual the use of fireworks, if it's the purchasing of fireworks, or if you're questioning whether somebody has a certificate, then they get a hold of Bureau of Fire Services.
Okay, sounds good. And so there are the 2 different types of fireworks. Do retailers who want to sell just the low impact fireworks, the stuff we had when we were kids or what have you, do they have to be licensed by the state?
It's not a license in the sense that they're not paying the fee, but they have to be registered with us. Okay. So they have to have let us know that they're selling low impact. And one of the reasons that is that any fireworks where there's low impact, or the consumer fireworks in the state of Michigan, there's a 6% safety fee.
Okay.
And that 6% safety fee actually is used to train firefighters. So if they have low impact, they also have to send in monthly their safety fees.
Okay. And where do those safety fees, what are they used for? You said it was $600 for tents and $1,000 for buildings. Where does that money go?
Well, the $1,000 for the buildings and the $600 for the tents, that more goes towards actually the administration of the program. It also goes into issuing the certificate, but further it goes to the inspection and then the enforcement side, because we're going back and looking at those tents. When we look at the 6%, that's that safety fee, that actually goes to train the firefighters.
Okay, all of that does?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the money for the certificates actually is from the administration of the program, the inspection of the program, and those type of services. The actual sale of the fireworks then is the safety fee that goes for trained firefighters.
Very good. So some folks have asked in the past, do you have, safety tips for kind of setting these things off? Because back in the day when you couldn't really set anything off that could really hurt you.
Right.
But now there's a lot of damage that can be done if you're not safe with the fireworks. Do you have any safety tips or anything like that?
I think the one thing that we want to realize is that to buy fireworks in Michigan and also to set fireworks off, it's not a good idea to have kids doing it.
Okay.
That's what we see a lot of injuries. 1/4 of the injuries that come into an emergency room this time of year are related to fireworks.
25%?
So we're trying to educate folks. And some folks say, well, it's just a sparkler. Well, that sparkler can burn at temperatures up to 2,000 degrees. Okay. And when you start looking at, give you an example, water boils at 212 degrees. And I think anybody who would come in contact with hot water would be burned. So, we want to look at, but also we want to make sure that you're setting it off from your own property. Be a good idea to have a hose and a bucket handy. Even the stuff that's set off, it's a good idea to douse it before you put it in your trash. And there have been fires from fireworks being thrown in a trash can and then the trash can catching on fire. And
so even the low grade fireworks can be dangerous. They might not, have the explosive power of the larger ones, but they can burn and those types of things. So you need to be careful with your kids and the sparklers, just as if you are a larger firework.
I mean, just once you light that, there's going to be sparks, fire being emitted from it. Those come in contact with something that's combustible that will burn, including even fields. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that we don't want is we don't want to experience a wildland fire either from fireworks. So
if it's dry,
once you think about it,
yeah, be careful for sure.
And that's one of the things as we look around the state. You could say, hey, it looks green where I live, but you could travel to another part of the state, and then it's dry. So that would be one thing to check your local area and to make sure that you understand what the wildfire restrictions are for this area or the chance of a forest fire, that type of stuff.
Sounds good. Check your local municipalities for that.
Through the DNR.
Okay, and the DNR. Okay, when can these consumer fireworks be set off? I know there's a lot of folks who maybe are setting them off, this last weekend, this coming up weekend, but are there certain rules and laws that determine when they can be set off?
So if you go back to Public Act 256, 2011, the governor signed, basically it says you can set off fireworks 365 days a year unless there's an ordinance.
Okay.
Or rules are established by local government. It says any form of local government. Once a local government comes up with an ordinance or they come up with rules, they can limit it to the day of the holiday, the day before, and the day after of the 10 national holidays. Okay. So some could say, how far could you limit it? You could limit it back to essentially 30 days.
Okay.
One of the things also that a municipality has, if they want to, or a local form of government to enact, is you can enact hours. Okay. However, you can only, if you want to keep fireworks from being shut off, it's midnight and 8 a.m.
Okay.
So any other part of the day. So, we'll get that call from time to time, hey, my neighbor's setting off fireworks at 9 a.m. and it's the day before the holiday. If there is an ordinance, they can most certainly do that. Doesn't make for a good neighbor, but
sure.
We want to make sure that people understand that. So, and that's the thing that I think people have to look at is that where do you live, and take a look at and check with your local form of government to find out what works best for you. Okay. For the rest of the place in the state, though, if they haven't, then it's 365 days a year, and it doesn't include any time constraints.
Okay. But local ordinances can put restrictions on it, but they cannot interfere with the day before, of, or after a holiday. Correct. And they cannot interfere with between 8 a.m. and midnight.
Actually, between midnight and 8 a.m.
Those are the 8 hours that
you cannot shoot fireworks.
Fireworks.
That they can set the restrictions, and that goes all the way back to that's in the Public Act.
Yeah.
If people want to go look at Public Act 256.
Okay.
Basically, there's a whole section that says if you're going to enforce these hours, these days, then this is what you have to do.
Okay,
yeah.
That's good.
And it's about it ends up being about 6 paragraphs of language. And most municipalities or forms of government that have done something with it have already done that.
Okay.
So.
And you had mentioned before that you can only ignite, the consumer grade fireworks from your personal property.
Yep.
Is it legal to go to, say, the local church or the local, just an open area there and light them off there, or is that not okay either?
No, you can, and that's one of the things. Even if you take a look at Public Act 256, is that it specifically says you can't go to schools, you can't go to churches, you can't set it off on private property unless you have expressed permission from the owner.
Okay.
And then we also want to realize that the streets are not private property.
Okay.
So that we get a lot of complaints for that. Hey, folks are out in the streets. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to create some distance and stuff, and we want to have that. It goes back to that fire safety, having the hose, don't have the pets, don't have the kids close, but you want to make sure that when that firework goes up, that it's not coming down on top of your house. And that may be a thing that some people who live in more dense areas, I think you'll see some municipalities in Michigan have a little stronger ordinances because they realize that anytime you put a lot of houses close together, potentially you could have a problem.
All right. And for those watching the live with us live here on Facebook, if you have questions, feel free to type them in. We'll see if we can get those answered before we're done here today. But is it legal to have, to drink and shoot off fireworks? Is there any sort of law that limits the amount of, alcohol you can drink? Or is that, besides being, just be smart, is there a law about that?
Public Act 256 says you have to be 18 years old to purchase fireworks in the state of Michigan. It says you cannot be impaired by alcohol or controlled substance while you're shooting off the fireworks. So it's pretty straightforward that you can't be drinking and shooting off fireworks.
Okay. And what is a violation of that law? What's the penalty?
Most of the time, when you get into the alcohol and you get into the under the age of 18, you're looking at a $500 fine.
Okay. Obviously, there's probably some safety tips. Get far away when you light them. Maybe light them one at a time. Are there anything else like that folks would be wise to hear?
Yeah, I think the idea is to set up an area around where you're going to light up your fireworks, kind of a safety perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
You want to limit who's inside of that area.
Okay.
There again, you're lighting them one at a time. This would seem pretty simple and straightforward, mm-hmm. but a lot of the injuries that you're seeing that they're seeing at the emergency rooms is actually fireworks coming in contact with the face.
Okay.
So, one of the things is that as you're lighting it, you don't want to be leaning over it.
Okay.
And I think sometimes people aren't sure whether it's ignited or not. They're leaning over it, they're giving it another look, they're holding whatever device they're using to light it, and then that firework goes off and comes up into their face.
Okay. All right. And let's see here if there's anything else on fireworks. Do we have any questions on fireworks at this point? Okay. All right, let's move on then to grilling.
Okay.
And you think of grilling. This last weekend, a lot of us were already out, using our grills and all that. You don't really think, at least I don't typically think, that there's a lot of danger associated with that. But I'm guessing that you might have some.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is and looking, anytime you're getting ready to do something like this, you want to make sure you have your facts right. The National Fire Protection Association, the National Fire Marshals, State Fire Marshals Association. We're recommending that you keep your grill 3 feet away from your house. So
okay.
I see that a lot of times on a deck. You got your grill right up tight to the railing, or you got it up tight to your house. Ideally, you should have 3 feet around your grill.
Okay.
This may sound pretty simple, but over the course of my career, working in the city of Grand Rapids, shouldn't be grilling inside. I think a lot of times people with the weather and stuff, they'll bring the grill up onto the porch. I've seen fires that have extended from that. You get that grease fire, you get that flare up, and that's the idea of having the space around your grill or in a garage.
Okay.
So, and then we're a little ahead of ourselves, but turkey fry season. There's still people that are using turkey fryers, fish fries, those type of things.
Yeah.
Not inside a building. Get them 3 feet away from the building.
Okay.
And then let's go back to, if you want to say, the folks that are doing it old school.
Yeah.
Some would say the charcoal and the smokers and
okay.
different things. You want to let those ashes cool down. Ideally, they go in a metal can. And unfortunately, here in Michigan, we go to a fair amount of fires where people take the charcoal or they take the ash, and it ends up in a regular garbage can. And that garbage can's up against the house, and then the house catches on fire. The deck catches on fire. So, some things that you want to think about too is the ash is falling down. A lot of times you're doing it on a wooden deck. I've seen that where stuff's gone down through the deck, and a couple hours later, the deck's on fire and the side of the house is on fire. So it happens more than you think.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we want to make sure that people are doing stuff safely.
Okay. Anything else on the grilling? Is there, with the gas tank hoses?
Yeah,
and those
one of the
things
that I think you want to realize is that you're cooking, there's grease, clean your grill before you use it, but also you're going to get a flare-up fire. And just like you wouldn't use water in your kitchen on a grease fire, water isn't always the best remedy at sometimes turning off the heat, closing the lid.
Okay.
But, even lighting your grill. Propane is heavier in air. It tends to collect. I think sometimes people turn on the tank, they turn the knob, they're pushing the button, and then they go to get something to ignite it. That propane. So make sure you turn off the gas valve.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're ready to let and you want to have the lid up when you light it. And there again, don't be leaning over the grill when you light it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's see if we have any questions at all on that. Not really. Then let's move on to getting out and about in Michigan here. If you're going camping, you're going swimming, you're going boating, there's a lot of dangers. And why do those things fall under the fire marshal anyway? Well,
I think a lot of folks would say it doesn't really directly fall under the fire marshal, but the reality is it's state fire marshal. We provide training to all the fire departments and the fire service as a whole. There's over 1,000 fire departments in the state of Michigan. Is that they're going to be the first responders that are going to respond to these. So if you look back in March, we did some stuff on ice safety. Why? Because firefighters respond. We're trying to do the same thing. Wear a life jacket when you're around water. Don't take for granted that water is a powerful thing, and even floating down a stream, a log across. It's called a strainer. Even you getting caught in one of those and getting pulled under, and it is possible to drown with a life jacket on, especially if you get caught up in a river or something. So you want to make sure that we're being safe around water. And unfortunately, there's a lot of tragedy every year. You even get out around the lakeshore. Some of the things with the waves and people getting pulled out and undertows and different things. So you want to make sure you have flotation devices close by. It's something you can throw to somebody, and it's that throw, row, and go. The actually getting in the water is the last part. Okay. And those are good water safety principles.
Okay. And so you're saying that a life jacket is good, but it can't, it doesn't take the place of good supervision as well, especially for children.
Well, I think life jackets are a good place to start, and especially have kids around water. And I myself have grown up around water. My kids wore life jackets. I put them out in the yard. Why? They fall in the lake. It doesn't seem like it's that, but it's pretty straightforward. That if you have kids, you can't always keep an eye on them at every time. So one of the things is same thing with having kids in a boat and stuff. Make sure they have life jackets on. So that if something was to happen or an event, do you have enough life jackets in your boat? And unfortunately, firefighters throughout the state, we see a lot of that tragedy. People went out to the river, they went out to the creek. It didn't seem like that big of a deal. And unfortunately, then it ends with a drowning. And that's a terrible thing for any family, but it has an emotional impact on the first responders. So one of the things I'm trying to do as a fire marshal is to be proactive. Is anytime that we can reduce the risk to Michiganders, it's great for the fire service too, because that emotional toll that it takes from participating in these different events or running these calls. So we're trying to lessen the risk, and that's why the fire marshal's getting involved. I see. It's a firefighter safety thing, and also we want your family to get out and enjoy Michigan. We're very fortunate, all these lakes and streams. Let's get out and enjoy them, but let's do it safely.
Yeah, and it seems obvious, but it's important for people not to swim alone. Not to go out and do these things by themselves. You need to always have somebody nearby. And if your children are with you, if your child's missing, it says here we should always check the water first. Seconds count. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think one of the things too is people are jumping in, they're diving in. How deep is the water? And then also, people underestimate that, especially when you have a moving body of water. Very quickly, that person's floating downstream, and you say, well, we're just going to wade in a little bit. Well, then pretty soon you get caught in the current. But also in the waves. The waves coming over, somebody loses their balance, especially with kids. So that it's that time that you turn your head just for that split second. So many things can happen, and that's what we're really talking about here.
Yeah, and if you're in pools and those things, don't make sure you test the depth by jumping in feet first.
You'd be surprised, and when I say surprised, talking with local fire chiefs, you get into some of the urban areas, southeast Michigan, and that's one of the things that, in talking with some of them, is we need to get out and we need to get the message. I mean, just something as simple as you have a pool in your backyard. Kids see a ball floating on the pool. I'm going to just reach in and get it. Next thing they fall in, and then they can't swim. So that's why there's fencing, there's safeguards that are around pools, and we need to remember that can happen. And the swimming pool doesn't have to be open. Unfortunately, tragedy hits even here in the state of somebody didn't open the pool for a while. Now imagine kids interested in. We're humans. We're drawn to water. And so in the process, they fall into this pool, and then that's where the fire department gets involved too.
I see. So then with boating, drinking and driving, it's pretty obvious to me, but that's not allowed in boats, just like it's not allowed in the cars, right?
Same thing. Yep. If it's not allowed in your, in a car, it applies to the water also. I know this past weekend, listening to commercial stuff, the Coast Guard and Michigan State Police are out enforcing that across the state. And we want you to go out and have fun, but we also want you to realize that driving a boat impaired puts you and everybody in that boat at risk, or even folks that are, in a kayak or swimming, not paying attention.
Okay. When you respond to, deaths or injuries related to boats, what are some of the common reasons why that happens? Obviously life jackets, you need to make sure you have enough life jackets, but are there any other tips that you would offer?
I think sometimes, the boat has a problem with the motor, and when you can't, get the motor underway, it's hard to steer. You also see it in streams and stuff, log across the river, you come up alongside of it, Next thing you know, it dumps you into the water. And then in the process, a lot of times people are chasing down belongings and then will find themselves in trouble. So, the idea here too is too many people in the boat, having the boat overloaded to the point where the boat starts taking on water, especially if there's any waves. So, we want to, if you look at boats, there's usually signs that says the capacity, that's how many people you can have. But also every time you're in a boat, you should have a life jacket, one life jacket for every person in there.
And boat owners, when you own a boat, you have a responsibility, I would think, to educate the people who are coming onto your boat. Non-boat owners might not be aware of the dangers of going out on a boat. You're just having fun. You're just out on the water. But I would think that a boat owner should kind of educate their guests as to what to expect if this happens, or here's where the life jackets are, things like that.
And that's a great point. And I know we're straying into some areas of the Coast Guard, the State Police, and the DNR with the water safety, but like I said, as the fire marshal, I'm coming out of the perspective of the first responders. But absolutely, that where are the life jackets? Is somebody a good swimmer or not a swimmer? I mean, if somebody's getting on your boat and not a swimmer, I'd have them put the life jacket on right then. And then also for the kids, there's different things that we have to follow to certain ages to where kids have to have life jackets on.
Yeah, and the fewer of these incidents, the better it is for your folks who are having to be the first responders here. So, again, that's a good way to approach this, is the fire marshal looking out for your first responders there. So let's keep them not having to respond to these incidents by being smart about it ahead of time. When it comes to camping, let's talk quickly about that. What are some of the dangers that happen at the campground or in the woods?
Well, one of the things when you start looking at using, there again, we're starting to see more and more with the lanterns with propane. But I've found in my career with meeting folks that are burn survivors that a lot of the tragedy that goes back to some of these kids with the white gas and some of the different camping stoves and different things. And there again, everybody's around, we're trying to get ready to eat, and they light this thing, and then there's a flash fire, and folks' clothes are on fire and stuff. So one of the things that we want to look at is that anytime you're lighting those devices, have the source to light it and then turn on the fuel, not letting the fuel build up. Also, and we didn't have to worry about it this weekend, but when people start camping and stuff, what are they using to heat their campers? What are they using to heat tents? Carbon monoxide's an issue. I think sometimes we look at, we're getting outside, we're going to enjoy the great outdoors, but heating devices, there's some, whether it's insects or animals build a nest into the vent, and you don't know it on your camper, and you turn on your heat, and then carbon monoxide levels. So, one thing that I thought this was kind of interesting, some friends of mine that are in the, if you want to say, taking care of folks, right? They're saying that, hey, when we travel, we actually have a carbon monoxide detector we take with us, and we actually take our own smoke alarm with us. And I thought that's kind of an interesting thing. You rent a cottage or your camper, and you hope that they have that type of stuff. But, change the batteries even at the cottage. Does the cottage have a working smoke alarm? Does the cottage have a working carbon monoxide detector? Because those are things that we hear tragedy every year across the state. And again, we're trying to eliminate that.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Take those things with you. Hadn't heard that one before. So
that was kind of interesting too, that I was talking with some folks at a conference, and they were talking about our go bag for when we go on a trip. And I said, your go bag? Interesting. They said, yeah, we actually take, we make sure that we bring a working smoke alarm and carbon monoxide detector with us. I thought, that's good sound safety advice.
For sure. Is there anything else that, general safety reminders during the summer as we, the temperatures are soaring, especially this week here? Is there anything else you'd remind folks?
Well, I think we have to remind ourselves it's definitely been hot lately, which is this is the weather we've been waiting for. We're only 6 months away from being back in the frozen tundra that we also enjoy in this state too, right? So one of the things that you want to look at is what are you going to do for the day? What are some things that you should plan for? And hydration is a big part of it. Even kids out playing sports. I know talking with my son's friends, they're getting ready to start a lot of baseball tournaments coming up in the next few weeks. It's going to be hot. So, making sure people are staying hydrated and make sure they're taking in plenty of fluids as they go along. We talk about heat stroke and heat exhaustion. And, one of the things I also want to push for fire safety this time of year is, I was checking in back in my home department. City of Grand Rapids responded to 90 alarms yesterday, and had a working fire. When I say a working fire, they had a house fire.
Okay.
Imagine putting on all that gear, putting 40, 50 pounds on your back. It's hard on our firefighters. So, one of the things that, this whole safety thing all ties into, making sure that you take care of you and your family, and then ultimately, how do we take care of the first responders? So I think it's all one big package.
Sure. And there's always the story every year of the kid who dies in the car because it got too hot, the windows were up.
Yeah.
That's just a dangerous thing that we need to really take care to avoid.
It is, and we get caught up and busy in life, and we're running in and out. But we really need folks to before they exit their car, check, make sure you don't have your kids with you, make sure you don't leave anybody behind. And I don't think that people fully understand, and we're also talking about kids and pets,
yes,
how fast that car gets and how fast it gets that hot.
Yeah.
So one of the things is that make sure you're clearing your car. And I get it. I'm just going to run in for a few minutes, but it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
That's the tragedy I think we hear about that. And the other one that probably one that we should put out there too is I don't think that people realize that garden hose laying on the ground, how hot that water can get to 130, 140 degrees. You go to spray the hose, you get a scalding type burn. So there's a lot of things out there that
you don't realize.
We want people to enjoy summer, but we also want to make sure that let's reduce the number of trips to the emergency room. And I think that's what we're really trying to do here today is, we want you to have fun. We want you to have the ability to get out and enjoy our state, but we also need to realize that accidents happen quickly and tragedy, and that's what we're really trying to do here.
Sure. So. And the more we talk about it, the more it gets top of mind awareness for folks, and people can be on the lookout, pass these tips on to their friends. So clear the car when you get out of it, make sure that there's no kids or pets in there, and then clear the hose before you start spraying your kids with it or anything, because that water does come
even the kids playing with it.
Kids playing
that's the other thing. What kid doesn't enjoy playing with a hose, right? So they take the garden hose laying on the ground. Hey, I'm going to spray you, you spray me. But in the process, realize that it doesn't take much for that water to heat up in that hose, and that initial spraying of the hose can cause burns.
All right, sounds good. Anything else before we wrap up here?
No, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I think this is one of the things we're trying to do here at LARA. We're trying to showcase the great people we have working here for the state. And then also, we gave you some phone numbers. If you're out and about this weekend on fireworks, you're really not sure, the fireworks hotline, 24/7, we're going to answer it. We're going to send somebody out. It's 517-388-6715. Please call that number. We'll get somebody out there to check it. If you're having any issues with fireworks, and sometimes we hear about this, it's a local law enforcement is who you need to contact.
Okay.
I'm not going to be able to send an inspector out to every single place, but if you're having issues with, or you're not sure about some things, reach out to your local law enforcement. And the idea here is enjoy the 4th, and we don't want any fireworks accidents this year. That's what we're shooting for, is 0.
Okay.
And let's maybe throw that trend off of 25% of the emergency room visits are from fireworks. So lower that number. And than's for the opportunity to be on here this morning and talk to folks across the state.
For sure. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for watching. Feel free to share this with your friends and your family, and just pass the word along on these ways that you can stay safe this summer while you are also enjoying everything that Michigan has to offer. So thanks for joining us for LARA Live this morning, and have a good day.